Morning, everyone. My name is Tony Alford with Aikens IT, and I specialize in private public cloud infrastructure. Today's webinar is called Don't Lose All Your Data, the Business Continuity Crisis, and will be broken down into two parts. First, we'll be covering backup, and part two at 10:30 we'll cover disaster recovery. Part one, backup. Malicious actors on the internet are currently taking advantage of the financial and wellness insecurity that came with COVID-19. We're seeing a 148% increase in ransomware, malware, and data exfiltration attacks during COVID, making these types of attacks more common than ever before. And it's costing businesses nearly $4 million on average to recover from an attack. Data loss of any kind costs US businesses about $8,000 per minute, and recovering from large-scale data loss is costing $15.6 million on the high end of the average financial loss. However, ransomware and malware are not the only threats to your data. There are threats which you cannot protect yourself against without backup and disaster recovery. Human error, for example, is the #1 cause of service interruption, with server, storage, and power failure following it. So what can you do to protect your environment from data loss? Implementing a backup solution, which will process and store copies of your data so you can restore it after a data loss event, is one of the best ways to protect yourself against data loss. Private cloud backups are processed and stored on your data center's infrastructure. Because the restore points are local to your environment, when you want to restore data from on-prem, it's going to be much faster than trying to restore data from a public cloud. But restoration from a private cloud backup to a cloud provider will take longer. Private cloud backups also require a large amount of free storage and a powerful internal networking environment to perform consistently and efficiently. With public cloud backups, the backups for on-prem VMs are processed on-prem and offloaded into a cloud provider storage account. Or if you're backing up a cloud VM, then it is processed and stored in the cloud provider storage. Public cloud backups require little to no on-site storage infrastructure. You can configure them to have geo-redundant protection against ransomware and are largely unaffected by a loss of backup infrastructure. However, there are additional costs associated with storing and processing your data in the cloud, and restoration outside of the cloud provider's workload will take longer than private cloud. RPOs and RTOs are some measurables used to qualify the quality of your backup and disaster recovery solutions. Your RPO or recovery point objective is the age of the most recent recovery point. For example, if your most recent recovery point was at midnight and it's noon the next day, your RPO is 12 hours. For recovery time objective, or RTO, it's the amount of time between your service disruption and your workload being restored and running. So if you have a power outage in the data center at noon and you're back up at 2 p.m., your RTO is 2 hours. Rule of 3-2-1, it's a minimum requirement recommendation for your business continuity plan. It consists of storing at least 3 copies of your data, 2 forms of backup media, and 1 backup copy off-site. So an example would be, I'm backing up a VM every day for 3 days, creating a backup copy of the backup data, and then storing either those backups or the copies in the cloud. This is going to ensure that that protected VM is resilient against common scenarios that would render the backup solution useless, such as a loss of data center storage equipment that the backup data is stored on, or a backup chain being corrupted with no copy to use as a substitute. Next, we'll discuss Veeam Backup. Veeam is one of the industry leaders in backup solutions, partnered with Island. Veeam stores restore points in either private cloud, a low-cost Island Cloud Connect object, or a public cloud provider's object storage. Unlike Azure Backup, Veeam is able to store and restore VMs to any cloud provider. So it's cloud agnostic. You can restore to Azure, AWS, or any other provider that you prefer. It can also back up your O365 mailboxes, SharePoint sites, Teams data, etc., which, contrary to popular belief, Microsoft is not doing for you already. Its user interface is simple to understand and presents all information related to your backups in clear metrics. It also has a highly customizable backup chain process in which you can configure how many restore points the backup chain will run before starting a new one, as well as scheduling and automation configurations that allow you to determine when your backups run and attach scripts to the process. Veeam also has the ability to cluster multiple storage extents into one scale-out repository, which will load balance the data between those different extents. So this is great if you have some legacy storage that's too slow for your production environment, but it's a large amount of storage. Veeam could be a great target for this. So Veeam works at the hypervisor level, so it will request a snapshot from the hypervisor, process and dedupe that data against the full backup within Veeam, and then remove the snapshot from your hypervisor when the information is processed. Backups are processed in chains with a full backup, which would be the largest size backup in the chain, starting it, and every backup following will be an incremental until the next full backup. These incremental backups are only going to process and store change data from the source, the active full backup. I'll now walk you through Veeam's interface and create a protection group, or create protection on one of the VMs. So right here is the dashboard for Veeam. From here you can see a list of all of your backup and backup copy jobs, their last result, their last run, their status. You can sort and filter. If you click into these, you can get detailed information on every single run that job has done. Under backup, I'm able to see the specific backup jobs, and under backup copy, I can see the copy jobs for those backup jobs. Under disk, if I drill down into one of those, I'm able to see the amount of restore points I have for each VM that's being protected. And then we can see the same on the copy jobs. Now in this last 24 hours pane, we can see our running, succeeded with warning, and failed jobs, and click into any of them to get additional information into which step of the process that Veeam had trouble. And you see right there, those action items are all every single step of the process. Under backup infrastructure, we can view our individual extents right here. You see the Azure Blob Storage on the top, and then all of the local disks that are added in. And we've actually set this up so that they're in scale-out repositories. So whenever the data starts to fill up on one extent, it's going to load balance and do the next step in that chain, or the next chain on another extent. You can see that there. For more or less, the Veeam has load balanced the data across all of these different extents. All right, next we'll show you how to make a backup job. So let's do a virtual machine backup. And this is the kind of like overview network topology view where you can see your hosts, clusters, and VMs in that type of display. You can also do it through tagging. Tagging is really cool because when you use tags to add VMs to a job, if a VM exists in multiple jobs and you want to remove it from protection and you're utilizing tags, instead of going into each individual backup job and backup copy job and removing it, you modify and remove it out of the tag, and it's going to update itself automatically to all of the associated items. So here's where you'll select your storage extents, your backup proxy. You can also set the amount of restore points you'd like to retain. You can configure a secondary destination to offload like tape or your cloud provider. And then you can also do some advanced backup processing configurations here. So under backup is where you get the specific down to the details configuration. There's also settings for maintenance, storage, email alerting for succeeded or failed jobs under notifications, vSphere configurations and integration. And then right here is where you would attach any type of script. You can have these that run before or after the job. So next, this is the guest OS processing area. I'm just going to leave these default. And right here is where we can configure our scheduling. So for this VM, for this protection group, I'm going to make a 1 a.m. backup that runs on certain days out of the week. Any of the days I uncheck, this backup job won't run. You can also customize how Veeam reacts to a failed job. If you don't want Veeam to wait 10 minutes in between each retry, you can reduce that time. And you can also protect your production workloads by not allowing the Veeam run when your network utilization is at its highest, as Veeam does use a large amount of internal networking. And then from there, you would apply, finish, and verify your backup. So to conclude, cyber attacks, as stated before, are at an all-time peak during COVID-19, 148% increase. Ask yourself how backup plays a role in your business's continuity plan. Do you have backup? Is it configured correctly? Are you following the rule of 3-2-1? If it's been a while since you've assessed your business continuity plan, this could be a call to action for you to take a step back and make sure all your information is still relevant. We offer a managed backup as a service in these bundles that we'll customize to your business. Please reach out if you'd like to discuss any of these bundles to harden your business continuity plan.